Well, welcome to the journey. My name is Kevin Polky, and I am the host of the journey. And we are at this time reflecting on uh, the time of year that's in between uh, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And many times, uh, I think with the different aspects of preparing for Christmas, preparing for those all those celebrations, um, I think there is this natural time period uh, to reflect on Christmases that have gone before us, and also reflect on earlier parts of this year. Um, I think one of those things that triggers me into thinking about previous Christmas is when Diane's taking out the Christmas ornaments and the Christmas decorations from out of the boxes, and we were able to look at different ornaments that we have received or given each other um, in those past Christmases. I think it's also a time period where it's, for some, there's an amplification of um, a loss or a setback that happens. Um, Richard Rohr, I've quoted many times in saying that suffering is part of our life experience, that we all suffer, that we all experience at some level um, of suffering. So that is part of our life experience that we can't really escape if we're doing life at all. What we do have a choice of is what we do with the suffering. Are we going to transform from that suffering, or are we going to transmit that pain? What could that look like? Well, let's first talk about what happens if we suppress some type of loss or some type of setback, or some type of disappointment. Um, Maybe because we don't, maybe because we felt betrayed, maybe because we don't know how to express those feelings. We don't know who to express those feelings with. We suppress them, and the energy that it takes to suppress um, those emotions and the feelings that come around that setback or loss builds up an energy, and we will transmit it, or we may, in other words, take it out on someone else, and express that in a way that isn't healthy or productive, or at least is not being constructive. So it has some type of life taking aspect of it. And usually it happens, again, from this emotional standpoint. It's like getting too much pressure inside a pop bottle. Like a 2-liter bottle of pop that's being shaken, and then it ends up transmitting, right, exploding on individuals that it probably wasn't even intended to. The alternative to that is transforming. And what do we mean by transforming from suffering? Uh, I think in AA we talk about the idea that that you hit some aspect of a bottom. We may have some aspect of a dark night of our soul, or this is a space in Joseph Campbell's work in the hero's journey that we are in that disorder phase, and we have to face those demons or dragons that lie within us that are now being awoken through this type of loss. Brian Halliday refers to this obstacle or this setback or loss, that it could potentially be our teacher for this new way of looking at life, and that it wouldn't happen if this setback wouldn't have happened. So this idea that these setbacks that we have, these losses, are opportunities for us to change in a way that we wouldn't have if this would have never happened. And it doesn't have to be a negative way. It doesn't have to be in some type of in some type of uh, deformity, that it can actually allow us to be stronger. Um, Recently, I had an injury that happened. Don't know for sure. I'm in the midst of that injury right now, healing from that injury. I don't know for sure that I'm going to be physically stronger as a result of this injury, but I do know that there at least will be an opportunity for me to become mentally or emotionally or spiritually stronger. So it may not be in the areas that we think, but it can happen in some way. So I think that is really what happens with suffering or setbacks, is that there can be an opportunity for that transformation that happens, that wouldn't have happened if that loss wouldn't have been experienced. I think in particular during this time period, as we're reflecting on the year, reflecting on family and friends and seasonal traditions. Um, I think it is that time that um, we may be able to empathize with other individuals as they are going through their own setback. And many times we are not going to know if a person is going through something, because they may not be sharing it with us. So I wrote something a while ago, and I just reposted it, and I'm going to read it to you, um, and see if it resonates with you, and maybe worth passing on to someone else. But even if it isn't something to pass on, hopefully it'll be something that you can uh, take in consideration, regardless if you're listening to this in your car or working out, or in your home somewhere. That when you are around others, maybe you can take some of these tips into account when you interact with others. So I start off with, during the Christmas season, with all the busyness, we must remember the ones who suffer. There are many reasons for the suffering, but one of the things I can do is not add to it. I can choose to be open to offering a helping hand to a neighbor, or resist the temptation to judge. To judge, I can resist the temptation to judge someone else's journey. We'll never know another's suffering if we don't humble ourselves to ask and listen. Choose to slow down and listen. And a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. If we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must become inclusive rather than sectional. Our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, our nation. And this means we must develop a world perspective. So not not just at this time of year for Christmas, but maybe we can start there. That to be able to help a neighbor out if they need something done in their yard, or need uh, help with shoveling the snow. Maybe it's opening a door for somebody. Maybe it's sending someone a text out of the blue. Maybe it's saying to a family member that you haven't talked to that you love them, and that you were thinking about them. Any of those little gestures can be life-giving and can enrich someone and put a smile on their face. And if for some reason we don't see those opportunities, what we can do is maybe pause and not choose to judge someone when we only know our perspective of their story. As always, I think throughout the day, throughout our week, we have the opportunity to be a light in someone's darkness. And we never know when someone's in that dark, because most things that people suffer with, they suffer with in silence, and they aren't sharing them. So if nothing else, we can walk as an example of that light, because we never know where it might be shining. As always, thank you for listening, and I look forward to being with you next week.